What's up, everybody? CP and SJ with you again for another week of picks here on Every Day We're Covering. We're going to get into hopefully some great picks for you here again this week. It's kind of a modest week last week. We had a really good one the week before. So I think we're due with the ebb and flow. We're due for a good week here for the folks.
Yeah, it's another tough week as far as kind of picking that top five here. So again, last week we had a tough narrowing it down. We did okay on the picks, but narrowing it down was a little tricky again, at least on my end. I don't know how it was for you. So if that's the case, we can expect another week of pretty exciting games. At least that's the hope. But
Yeah,
yeah, let's just cover. We don't, whatever else happens, happens.
exactly. I don't know. I feel pretty good about a few of these, though. So hopefully we'll end up on a good side here. We're going to start off here with one that's going to be right up here right away. So you're going to need to make this play as soon as you see this. It's a Friday night matchup in the Big Ten. Michigan State taking on Purdue. And we both are looking at this, and I think we ended up with just slightly different numbers. I got the line at minus 14. And I still feel pretty good about that. And I think you're even maybe in a little bit better shape than that.
Yeah, a little half point less, so we'll see if that plays into or not. Honestly, looking at this just from what's happened the last few weeks, I don't think we're going to be too worried here as we get probably middle of third quarter, even maybe by halftime, it might be a little bit put to bed. But I played this early in the week just because I thought maybe some people would jump on it and knock it down a bit, but it stayed about the same. I mean, only got a half point higher than I did, so it didn't move too much, surprisingly. So that was, I guess, my concern when I made the play, because I was like, shoot, this might friggin' we might be looking at a 10-point spread by the time kickoff happens there on Friday night. So I didn't want to mess around too long.
Yeah, and obviously the way the season's gone would tell you that bet against Purdue is a good idea. And Michigan State's really had a pretty decent run here. They're a formidable team. I think kind of that middle of the pack there in the Big Ten. So you would expect them to be able to handle this one pretty easily. Moving on to Saturday. I guess I'll kick things off here. The first one that I was looking at, it does involve your boys, and it may not be the way you wanted to go, but I guess at the end of the day, as long as your team wins, you probably don't give a rip what the score is.
3-0, 3-2, whatever. 2-0, I'm good with. It's a W. It's a W.
I'm going unders in Wisconsin, Nebraska. It's at 42.5, so it's not like a huge number, but just the way these teams have trended here lately. I mean, even Wisconsin, given Oregon a hell of a run last week, it was a low scoring 16-13 game. So I think that's what they're good at, is trying to hold teams down a little bit. Nebraska hasn't scored over 20 points the last 5 weeks. So you don't think, I wouldn't expect, I do expect them to be the team that maybe scores more, but enough of a low number to keep it within that 42.5 between these two. So I'm going to go low in that one. Kind of that traditional Big Ten type game you think of.
Yeah, I even think even in recent history, both it's kind of been a little bit more of a an uglier affair, if you will. So that's a safe bet there, and probably I'm not that far off with you, but like I said, as long as it's one more point, I really don't care how ugly and how terrible it looks. That's fine. Just get that damn W. Along those same lines, though, Iowa and Maryland are matching up here this week, and I kind of figure the same, especially with we thought Iowa had figured it out at quarterback. They're actually putting up some decent numbers, and lo and behold, an injury takes out, the Sullivan, right? That was actually playing pretty well. So that hurts. And then it's not even going to be McNamara, I guess. So at least that was the last I heard. It's going to be the who would have been third string, I guess, what we thought. But either way, I don't think that bodes well for the offense. Is the point of the story. I don't really care who starts, who plays, but to me, it's like they actually kind of had something rolling there. And to lose your starter is never good, especially when they were really actually playing kind of well offensively, at least. Maryland's just kind of one of those, you don't know what you're going to get up and down type of teams, but I don't see them lighting up the scoreboard either way, even if they're able to pull something out here and maybe get a, I guess it'd be a mild upset. Just going off what they've done this season, I don't see. To me, it seems a bit of a coin toss there. So I'll just go ahead and take the unders on that. Could be similar to the game you just mentioned, maybe one of those. You don't need to watch twice; just get that score and move on, and go to the next week.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's always tough when you're changing guys back there at quarterback so often. You can't hardly get in any kind of a rhythm. You need that gameplay to be able to
Mhm.
get there, and when you don't have it, that really stinks. I heard a rumor too, and I don't know how true it is, but kind of that McNamara has kind of gone AWOL too, and he might just
Mhm.
be done with the
I mean,
program. So
that would make sense going from
yeah.
what you thought to where you are now. That doesn't seem too far fetched.
Yeah. But yeah, probably a good play to go under on that game. That would be the wise route to go. I'm going to go with another total here on the next one as well. This is a big game in the Big 12, and as Kansas has seemed to have found a little bit of a something here lately and pulled off a couple of nice straight wins, and they're taking on an upstart Colorado team that's put together a nice run here as well. They've got themselves in the Big 12 title game mix, so they need to win. But Kansas is starting to get it going. I think this game goes over. It's a big number, 59.5. So it is going to have to need to be a lot of scoring. But we just saw it, a couple weeks ago there, Colorado and Utah putting up huge numbers between each other. And Utah's not a team that scores points. Kansas is much more capable of doing that. So I'm going to go over in this game. I think it is a shootout, kind of one of those maybe 35-31 type of finals here as they come down the stretch and just get over that mark. So I'll take the overs in that game.
And I really wanted to pick an upset, so I looked at this game like really close, and I still couldn't pull the trigger though. So I'm gonna go with and again, I'm not gonna complain about it here on the shortened version of our conversation here, but it's in Yankee Stadium, I believe, that Army and Notre Dame. So you don't want to get me started on the baseball stadium. So we'll leave that for this weekend, I guess, to recap. But I'm gonna go with another total. I guess it's the week of totals for us. We're looking at those pretty hard here. Army and Notre Dame, like I said, 44.5 was the number where I got it at. Army, I know they haven't played. Well, I mean, I guess maybe they kind of have because Notre Dame, other than a few exceptions of the games, they haven't played like world beaters. But either way, I know it's a little bit different of a schedule there with the armed services. But they've scored 40 several occasions. I think 3 or 4 games and hit 30 a couple times too. While Notre Dame's hit the 50 spot 2 or 3 times. I think they put up 61 time this year, and they've just been pretty explosive, more so than I thought. I thought they could have a pretty good team this year. Honestly, I just didn't think it'd be so offense heavy. But good news for them, especially after that Northern Illinois game. Who knew what to expect after that? But I guess that was the wake up call they needed. Either way, we need a good 30 spot from them would be nice. But I don't think it's so far fetched to see Army being in it in the fourth quarter. I think that is a possibility. Just not confident enough to go ahead and give them the upset this week.
Yeah, probably a good way to go on that. I like that as well. The next one I'm going to go to, of course, this is one of the games that actually is happening in the conference this week. SEC's got their traditional goofy non-conference matchups going on for a lot of teams here this week, but this one is within the league. Missouri is at Mississippi State. Missouri has just kind of somehow found a way to hang around. They have had their moments where they haven't played very well, but then they've also won some games that kind of surprised you, and they've kept themselves in that SEC conversation a little bit, and at least kind of hanging around towards the top of the league. And obviously, it's been a very, very down year for Mississippi State. They've been able to at least maybe cover a couple times, but that's about all they're rooting for anymore. I think that Mizzou, they're only laying 7.5, so it's only a little over a touchdown. I feel like Missouri wins this game by 2 to 3 scores at least. So I'm going to go Mizzou to keep the themselves in that conversation a little bit here with a win against Mississippi State.
Seems like they'd been kind of up and down, Missouri, that is, but then you look at their schedule, they won 7 games. So I mean that's pretty decent year. I mean, nothing to complain about. So yeah, I think that could be another one you might be by halftime feeling pretty good, not have to watch it too closely. You can maybe shift your attention to another game. I guess this is, I mean, you wouldn't think so looking at first glance there, but I guess this is within the conference as well with and I think you have this pick as well, the Alabama and Oklahoma matchup, which when they signed up or made the announcement that they're officially making the move, which they still would, they hang around for like 3 more seasons or 2 more years in the Big 12. That was, talk about awkward. But anyways, so when they did that, you're like, oh, Texas playing Alabama, Oklahoma playing Alabama, playing against Georgia, and then you get there, and this is kind of I guess there's not a lot of at least maybe from Alabama, I guess, is kind of excited because it could be a pretty easy day for them and their fan base and have a lot to cheer about. But there's definitely not the anticipation you would have thought when you're putting Alabama and Oklahoma on the field, a couple years back when you just, kind of start looking like who can play each other now that it's an expanded conference. And this was a game that probably was circled, maybe even at some point last year, you thought maybe next year could kind of put something together, but Oklahoma's just not. They just don't have much going on this year in a good way. And we mentioned on the, on the earlier pod this week is they have to win this game or beat LSU if they want to make a bowl. That's kind of a tough ask there. I know LSU's had their own struggles, but they've looked a little bit more of a complete package than Oklahoma has. So we'll go ahead and take Alabama 13.5. I think this will be fairly well above that spread there.
Yep, we're shaking hands on that one. That's exactly where I had it too. And once I was scrolling through the games and I saw that, I was like, this is the point in the season too where Alabama is going to try to, show their grit here a little bit too, and put the hammer down. So they get an opportunity, they're going to do it. And they definitely were going to want to do it on the road at a new place. The only thing I think that gives Oklahoma any sort of chance in this is that the home fans will be hyped up for it. I'm sure, you never get a chance to host in Alabama, but even then, they just, they don't have the horses this year. I mean, we were so wrong. We'll admit it. Like before that number for the total on the year for Oklahoma was like, man, that's a gimme, and they're probably not going to get there, obviously.
No, and it wasn't even a high number. I think 7.5 is where it was at, or maybe even 7. It might have been a 7, and I thought maybe a push at minimum is what you're looking at. And honestly, the spread probably should be higher, but Oklahoma might be getting a little bit of respect based upon the name, and they really don't get blown out very often, even when they've had bad teams. There's a few years here and there, but when they're kind of just middle of the pack, they still do usually play teams fairly close and give a competitive game. Now, I've got one more here. That's A&M, 2.5 point favorite. I think they'll roll in this game. I don't think there's going to be much resistance there from Auburn. Same type of deal. Like, maybe it was when you circled or said this is interesting teams, interesting matchup. That's not going to be the case. A&M's actually, surprisingly, they haven't dropped the ball, or I guess we can use football analogy, fumbled away their opportunities this year as they have in the past. Kind of seemed like they were that team that was when it was like, okay, here's your chance, make that jump, get to the that next tier of teams that are kind of going for the conference championship or even playoff beyond that. Now they kind of either didn't play well or kind of pissed away an opportunity, but it hasn't been the case this year. I know they've dropped a couple, but for the most part, they've looked pretty good and honestly a little bit more dependable than I remember them being in the past, at least from the perspective of making picks and trying to win some money off their games.
Yeah. They just had the one little hiccup. That South Carolina game on the road was kind of a dud, but other than that, they have kind of played pretty well ever since the beginning of the season with that tough game there against Notre Dame. So, the only thing that would scare me a little bit about that is the look ahead. I mean, are they looking ahead to Texas next week? But still, this is an Auburn team that they should be way overmatched against and be able to handle easily. I had that one written on my list as well. So I'm with you. I think that A&M easily covers that 2.5. I mean, to win by a field goal against that team, I don't think that's expecting a lot. I did have a couple of other kind of bonus bets here that I'm probably going to go with here this week. So this is outside of our normal 5, but and these are bigger numbers. That's the only reason I didn't put them in my top 5. One of them being Tennessee. They're playing one of those goofy games out of conference this week against UTEP. And obviously UTEP's had a very, very rough season, rough go of it, have not played very well against better teams, and Nebraska handled them easily there at the beginning of the season. Tennessee's obviously going to be a little bit pissed off too from last week. So I think they're going to want to go out and put the hammer down. They're laying 40.5. So it's going to have to be a good performance. But I just feel like it is one of those, 52-7, 49-0 type of games here for Tennessee, because we know they can put up the numbers when they get going. So I would take a look at playing that, even though it's a huge number.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the only ones that really kind of caught my eyes, maybe taking an underdog, if and I would definitely go points on this one, is that Penn State Minnesota matchup. You're getting 11.5 points, depending on what book you go on for on Minnesota's end, that is. So I definitely would take a look at that. And then also Kentucky, I know it's like they haven't been great, and Texas kind of been rolling. But 20 points is an awfully lot for and I mean it's a conference game. It doesn't seem like it should be, but those two teams are conference foes these days. So it just seems like that's a hell of a number there. And Texas, I mean, especially, I mean, maybe I'm just putting too much into that Arkansas game last week, but they have sleptwalked through a couple weeks here this year, and maybe they'll do it again. They still obviously win easily, but maybe they're up, maybe they're up 24 points and Kentucky gets a late TD or something to lose by 17. That'd be about the kind of the way to see that happening is about the how I could see it playing out. But other than that, those are kind of the two. Just maybe get some points on your side. I don't have very much any confidence in either of those teams making it much of a game other than that.
Yeah. The other one that I was going to go with is a big number is the other team that was in that game, Arkansas. They are coming off, obviously, that loss there to Texas, but, hung around, made it at least a somewhat competitive game. They're laying 22 against Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech obviously has struggled as well this season, kind of a mid-range 500 team. And they've lost to some teams that, give me the inkling that Arkansas could kind of hammer this thing home if they get going. And the other thing, too, is Louisiana Tech has a couple of key injuries. They've got a couple of guys that are banged up, their main parts of their offense. So I think Arkansas could roll in that one. Laying 22, feel pretty good about probably rolling with that one as well. So I would take a peek at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I guess one more that I pull up here, just that Vandy and LSU matchup. Keep an eye on LSU because they could hit the skids here. And we know we've liked Vandy's kind of little underdog story they've had. So that'd be about. Other than that, just that's about the only one that probably left. Looking at the list here, that stands out to me. That's a 7.5 point in favor of LSU at this time.
Yeah. Another game that I do think is interesting. I had this on my list and kind of thinking about going with Washington State, but I just think it's funny because it's kind of the Pac-2. Washington State is at Oregon State.
And there's a cocktail hour again.
Yeah, they're gonna have a little cocktail hour, play a little football on the side, maybe. So that's another one. That's just a fun game, I think, to keep track of here this weekend as well. Obviously, there'll be lots of fun games to pay attention to, and we'll be doing that all weekend long. And we hope that you are doing that at the same time, and maybe give us a little shout out while you're doing it. Or if you see a pick that you really love during the weekend, let us know. You see the handles there. That's on the Twitter platform at Cherokee CP at SJM Bets. You can hit us up and of course, either tag us, and then, of course, you can use the hashtag as well for the show name every day we're covering. That's what we've been doing with our picks as well. Kind of keeps everything in a nice, neat order. And then also, of course, we'd love it if you would just like, subscribe, and get the notifications here on this YouTube channel and share it with your friends so you can get these picks each and every week. And then like and share the show. It's available every week as well, the podcast and all the major podcast platforms, including our host at Spotify, and then right here on this YouTube channel if you want to stick with that as well. And those, of course, widely available. And we'd appreciate if you tune in for that. It comes out at you every either late Sunday night or early Monday morning there with the show as we recap what happened during the weekend. So hopefully we'll be tipping back a few cold ones and enjoying our spoils after a nice weekend of picks here. Get ready to put an indent in that couch here for a little while.
Yeah, we'll be pouring them back. The spoils thing, we'll have to wait and see on that. But either way, we're pouring them back. That's a given, right? I mean, we only got a few Saturdays left, so we got to enjoy it while we can. Yeah, it's plenty of games to be had, but it does fly by. That's one time. The one thing that does is the games you kind of anticipate that first week, and then before you know it, here we are in November. So that's one I kind of, it's like a pet peeve of mine. I hate when people complain about time flying, going fast, but football season, I'll agree with them on that.
Yeah. Enjoy it while you can. Get out there and enjoy some games here this weekend. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of picks here on Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next time for some more covers.